All right, so the do now is stating, find the measures of each interior angles of this equilateral triangle, and then I want you to draw all the exterior angles of this equilateral triangle. Well, to start off, this is an equilateral triangle. What does that mean? It means that all sides are going to be equal. In triangles only, if all of the sides are equal, then all of the angles are also congruent. So to find the measure of each of them, I would take its total, which is 180, and I would divide it by how many angles there are, which is 3, and I would get the total of 60 each. So each one of these angles is 60 degrees. Now, if I was to draw all the exterior angles, it means I extend one of the sides. And it doesn't matter which sides you're doing because they will be the same measure, okay? And once I have all the measures of these exterior angles or all the lines drawn out, I can find the measure of them. Now, this exterior angle, how do I find the measure of it? Well, these two angles are a linear pair. They add up to 180. So if I don't know one of them, and I know that that interior angle is 60 degrees, well, when I subtract 60 from each side, then that x value is equal to 120 degrees, which means this is 120 degrees, this exterior is 120, and so is this one. So yesterday, or the day before, whatever lesson came before this, we talked about all the interior angles of these polygons and how you would find the measure of them when you are talking about in any sided shape. Now we're going to be talking about its exterior angles. So it's going to be a little bit of a review of both. In this case, if there's 3 sides, the sum of the interior angles we knew were 180. The measure of one interior angle, if it's regular, is going to be 60 degrees each. That 180 divided by 3 is 60. When you're finding the measure of that exterior angle, you know it's going to be its supplement, which is 120. Now, how do you find the measure of all of them? Well, there's 3, so 120 times 3 is 360 degrees. The regular polygon for a quadrilateral is a square, and it's so perfect because each individual, well, the total of the interior is 360. The measure of one of them is going to be 90 degrees. If they're all equal, they're all 90 degrees. If I was to extend and find the measure of its exterior, that would also be 90 degrees. And then to find the measure of all of them, if they're all 4, well, that's going to be 360 degrees. So this is perfect. It goes from 360 to 90, or your insides, and then your outsides are 90 and 360. For a pentagon, a 5-sided shape, you know the total is going to be 540 degrees because 180 times that 5 minus 2 is going to be 540. So here, if you're finding the measure of one of those angles, if they are all going to be equal, well, 540 divided by 5 is 108. So each one of these interior angles will be 108, which means its exterior is going to be 72 because they will add to 180 degrees. And if I was to take 72 and multiply it by 5, which is how many exterior angles there are, well, 72 times 5 is also 360 degrees. So at this point, you should be developing a pattern. So we know from yesterday that this hexagon has a total of 720 degrees. If you're finding the measure of one of them, it would be 120. So all of these angles, when added together, is 120. One of them is 120, which means its exterior angle is going to be 60. Well, if there's 6 of those, 60 divided by 6, 60 times 6 is 360. So as we are looking at these patterns for any regular, which means that they're all equal, of an n-sided shape, the total would be 180 times n minus 2. To find the measure of one of those, we would take that total of 180 n minus 2, and we would divide it by how many angles there are. But how would we find the measure of the exterior angles? Would we take this number and subtract it from 180? We could, but that's a lot. So how can we use an easier way? Well, what do we know about their exterior angles? The sum of the exterior angles of any sided shape is going to be 360 degrees. It does not matter if you're adding the exterior angles of a triangle or a pentagon or a 100-sided shape. The exterior angles, when added together, will all make 360 degrees, no matter what. So how would I find the measure of one of those angles if they're all equal? Well, I would take that total of the exterior angles and then I would divide it by how many exterior angles there were. So now instead of concentrating on the 180 and the n minus 2's, we're going to concentrate on 360 degrees. What is the sum of the exterior angles of any regular polygon? It's going to be 360 degrees. Okay, so question. How would you find the measure of one exterior angle of a regular polygon? Well, I would take the total, which is 360 degrees, and then I would divide it by the number of angles that there are. That's how I'd find the measure of one of them. Now, how would I find the measure of one exterior angle of an irregular polygon? So for this, you would have to be given a diagram. I am given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 angles that I would have to add together. So I'm looking for the exterior angles of this pentagon. But what is the total exterior angles? Well, the total is 360. It actually doesn't even matter that it's a pentagon. So now I add 5n, 4n, 3n, 2n, and n together to get 15n. And then I would divide both sides by 15 in order to get n is equal to 24. Which would then mean that this would be 24, this would be 48, 72, 96, and 120. So how would I find the measure of one exterior angle of a regular polygon? I would take 360 and divide it by n. How would I find the measure of the irregular? I would add them all up and subtract them from 360. So that's all you need to know. You're going to start your daily work and then turn it in.